Hello, good morning, everybody. I recognize some of you from Venture Cafe. So thanks for being here. So I'm going to be talking about Hive, which is what I call social media that minds its own beeswax. So this might come as a shock to everyone, but there are problems with social media. Things like misinformation. Anybody can post anything without any context, evidence, or sources. What could go wrong? Yeah, that seems legit. Stuff like invasive advertising, when all I did was think about tomato soup and now there's ads for it, following me all over the internet. Especially misuse of personal information. You ever read the terms of service and wondered what third-party partners actually means? It's kind of like natural flavors in an ingredients list. Could be anything. And especially unproductive arguing. Things like political arguments are dumb, but people are going to kill each other over the Oxford comma, which, if you're not sure, is this guy right here. So, what do we do about all that? So here are Hive's proposed solutions to make a social media site/app that does not sell or share users' personal information with any third parties ever. Ads only if you choose to see them and according to explicit preferences of what you want to see. Explicit meaning you actually told me that's what you want to see and not because I was creeping on what you were looking at or clicking on. Having facts about sources of shared items shown and easy to read or understand. The existing social media platforms have things like this, but usually they're not very obvious or people don't even know that the function is there. And lockable comment threads to stop arguments. It's kind of hard to come up with a solution for pointless arguing, but that's one place to start, I think, to just kind of cut it off if it starts to happen. So social media platforms are, of course, pretty difficult to launch and gain traction for. So the value propositions for this would be that people can easily see information about an article source and how much people trust it, or anything else, any other content that is shared, and especially that users don't have to worry about abuse of their personal data for marketing or other purposes. Obviously, data breaches are not 100% preventable, but Hive's angle is that we wouldn't be doing it on purpose, which pretty much all sites do. So I'm going to switch over real quick to do a quick demo. Do you see a screen that looks sort of like a social media profile now? No? How about now? Yes? So this is my first pass at it using the Adalo low-code app maker, which is made by people in the I-10 community. So this is sort of what I would want it to look like. This is my profile, and I would like it to have things on it very obvious, like what type of article it is, what sort of influence it has. This would be like political left. This would be like a trust rating, what country it's from, because that can have a lot of importance, and some sort of rating system, but like likes and dislikes, but also have something else that's maybe more limited that people can't just click. So I call these badges. Maybe it's like you get 10 of them a month and it's sort of like something more special that you could give it. I also have pictures on user content, but not on shared articles, maybe just to de-emphasize those a little bit, because whenever I talk to people about things like this, the things they like about social media are, of course, keeping in touch with people they actually know, seeing things like cute pet photos, cute kid photos, and the things they hate are all the stuff that I mentioned previously. Here's an example of a different flag if you're wondering what that would look like. This one is Iraq, I think. Actually, Qatar, sorry. Okay, I'm going to switch back over. So the target audience for this is the people I mentioned before, the people who want to use social media, but are tired of having constant ads shoved in their face, or they're realizing that misinformation is a big problem. Strategies of how to acquire these users, because I haven't really started doing this yet. Maybe to approach groups that are already some type of community, but not necessarily focused on like a political group or anything, stuff like Venture Cafe or I-10. And maybe offer early adopters an account for life with no ads and no donation requests if they can get more people to come to the platform. And then revenue, this would be user support by optional donations, since if you're not going to have obligatory ads, you have to get money from somewhere. And so this would be sort of like a Wikipedia type situation where donations are periodically requested. People are encouraged to have an ongoing pledge of some sort, but no one would be forced to pay for an account. There might also be some possibility for ad revenue if users are opting in to view ads. So as far as resources I might look for in the community, like I just showed you, I sort of have the low code minimum viable product going, but could use some advice on how to sort of actually test that. And of course, a lot of people are looking for a technical co-founder, but I don't actually have the personal skills myself to build this, and I don't know if a low code option like Adalo could really flesh it out. So that might be something that I would need at some point. So that is all I have. Hopefully that was about 6 or 7 minutes. So does anyone have any questions or comments on?
Very much, Sarah. So I think, yeah, BJ is unmuting all of our microphones, and yeah, now we get to start grilling you. So,
okay.
I think
the fun part.
Right. Who would like to start with the first question? Yeah, I'll take it. You know, the elephant's always in the room when you're going against, when you're, you know, building a platform that is in direct competition to, you know, a Fortune 500 tech company, is why do you think someone would adopt? I mean, you know, you had kind of talked about, I mean, because all the complaints you said, you know, the political ads, the political discussions, the ads, all that is completely true, 100% true. I sit there. That's why I'm not on Facebook anymore, because I couldn't take the politics anymore, quite honestly. And I chastise anyone on Instagram who starts interjecting politics, because I'm like, shut up. I'm here to see pictures, okay? So, but how do you intend to take them on? You know, I mean, you're 100% right, but they're, you know, they are an elephant in the room. How do you intend to take on Facebook and Instagram and all that?
Right. And so I sort of threw that in at the end with the growth strategy angle, sort of trying to start with some sort of existing community the only way I can see to do it is to get a small sort of dedicated user base, the people who are actually interested in this, because there are quite a few of them, and I meet plenty of them at Venture Cafe and 1 Million Cups that say exactly what you just said. But then I also meet plenty of people who are just, they wouldn't want to switch to something new. Those aren't the early adopters.
Yeah.
So find some sort of community of early adopters and use them as sort of the center of a snowball, and try to get them to branch out. So I was trying to think of some sort of objective for them, which is where I threw in the try to recruit 10 other people to the platform, and then you can have an account forever with no ads and no donation requests either. So I'm sure you've seen the donation requests that Wikipedia throws up every now and then. Just, hey, for the price of a cup of coffee, we'll leave you alone for now. So start off with a thing like, hey, if you can drag 10 other people on here, you won't have to see that forever. Imagine that sort of almost game-like aspect might appeal to some people too.
Yeah.
I wonder if like St. Louis NPR or like skeptics.com have people who would like to have a social network through that website, or among people who subscribe to NPR. That might be a way to find groups of like-minded people who are already used to a donation model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's very true. It's interesting that you mentioned being used to a donation model, Mary, because that's one of the things that I talk about where I think we're getting to a point where this kind of thing could work, because people are getting used to that. We have things like Patreon and Kickstarter. People are sort of getting used to the idea of directly paying for things that they want.
Or I was even thinking like Channel 9, and your platform would be a good place for people to have like watch parties. And while they're watching something, comment on it, and have those kinds of discussions that are essentially ad-free, but you're speaking to a similar interest. So it might be interesting to approach local groups like Channel 9 or local NPR and see if they're at all interested in branching off into a social media aspect within their groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, if I could take another question, I think one thing you're going to have trouble, you're going to struggle with, not just going against the big guys, but right now you're kind of defining yourself by what you're not. You're not. You don't have political ads. You don't have this. You really need to drill down into what you are, and because if you're always defining yourself in opposition to something, that's not defining what you are. And so, could you say exactly right now what you are? Don't use your tagline, but say what you are, but don't reference anybody else.
Hmm.
You look like a cross between TEDx and 1STL. So it's hive.org, right? I'm just making sure I'm on the right Hive.
Oh, no, I don't have. So this isn't even really an actual website or anything yet.
Okay.
So this would still be very concept.
Okay. So then hive.org is you might want to look at that, because hive.org, well, I've been all over hive.org thinking that was you. Because basically they are they're sort of like a social media cross between TEDx.
Is that the one where
I quoted out 1STL. You won't know who they are.
The one that's more like work focused,
but that's what I'm saying. Yeah, because I thought, you're looking at this site, the competition isn't Facebook, the competition is LinkedIn. So I'm sorry, I thought that was you. because that's sort of
Okay.
defining. I mean, they say very similar things, except they have a focus. They actually have a, again, it's sort of like TEDx meets. So one STL is something that's sustainability in St. Louis. You probably won't know what that is if you're not from here, but that's kind of what they do. And so they actually, to what Joseph is saying, they have a specific focus, which then allows them to attract. The problem is when what Joe is adding on to what Joe is saying, if you're totally undirected and you haven't found yourself, then you either potentially invite people who have other agendas because they see you as a blank slate that they can exploit, or you're just not directed and focused, and so. I mean, look at hive.org. It's interesting how they've done this. And I apologize for confusing them for you, because based on what you're saying, I was thinking, oh, wow, this actually looks really cool. Because they're a membership. So I thought, wow, this is something I could get used to and get into it. So I agree totally with Joe. You do need to carve out a niche so that you can find people who can help grow your organization. Because again, if it's not focused, people don't believe in it. And without that, you have nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about this idea, I did look up, what other things have the name Hive. And I found a couple of kind of similar things. So I'm wondering if that one of the ones that I'm thinking of is what you're looking
Yeah.
at. One of them was, like you said, more work focused. And then there was another social media type thing that my friend and I downloaded and we tried to look at, but it was really buggy and it didn't work. And it just didn't really seem to be much of anything. So
I'm trying to remember. A few years ago, there was a gal that started a social media platform. I think it was called Friendly, and it was to, for example, have private social media spaces for cheerleader groups or gymnastics school groups, or it was very kid safe. It was a place where kids could do social media within an interest group and be very, very safe. If I can remember who she was, I'll be able
Her
to
name was
introduce you.
Janelle.
And then you've got some. Do you remember, Joe?
Her name was Janelle. I don't remember her last name.
Okay.
I do remember her first name was Janelle. Yeah, and it was like Frenetti or something like that.
Frenedy.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
But,
that's a pretty.
it sort of got going, and then it sort of didn't.
I think she had to work a day-to-day job and just never was able to put the time to it.
But the deal is that her experience in that space would probably be useful to you, Sarah.
that would be great. But back to your original point, Joe, it's true that I have had a hard time sort of defining my, like, what I am or what I want to be. That's true. But I also think it's very true that people pay for less just as often as they pay for more. You get all these brands that are focused on having less of something, like no artificial flavors, no artificial ingredients, no this, no that. So just the sort of the absence of certain things that are not desired can be the focus, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's true. That's true. It's just, it makes it hard to kind of narrow down what you're saying. Like kind of what Chris is saying, that's the, and Chris is right. I'm just a believer that people need to be able to latch on to something. And you can, if you're, and I guess what I'm saying is if you're going to be, or not this, then you need to be really hard. I mean, you really need to overplay the, we are not this, and not just, not be friendly about it, but almost be in your face. I'm talking just marketing here. I'm not talking the design of your of your platform. But I'm saying, as far as your marketing goes, you would have to be over the top, almost ignorant about it compared to, Facebook.
Right. And so I have said to people, it just sort of seems like it's the right time for something like this because there's so many people who are tired of Facebook and the other common options. And obviously there's a lot of social media platforms that just aren't that big that might be kind of like this, but they haven't made it mainstream yet.
Mhm.
Or maybe won't ever. But the opposition to Facebook is pretty strong. So just sort of being not that is a strong angle. I think you're right that it's not enough, like there needs to be more to it. And I suppose now that I'm thinking about it, the things that I would want to focus on the presence of would be things like accountability in the information sourcing. So I sort of brushed over it pretty rapidly. But what I would really like is for, like, if I see an article posted, I would like it to be very obvious where that article came from.
Yeah.
Like, there's been lots of times that I've seen something shared on social media, like that Black Friday headline that I put in my presentation. That was from The Onion, which is a satire website. But there are people who literally don't know that. And they see something like that and they get really upset about it. And The Onion is pretty well known, but there's other satire websites that do the same kind of thing that are less well known, like the Daily Current.
Mhm.
And people get really worked up about these things without even realizing that it's satire because they don't take the time to look into it and it's not really well called out. So for things like that, I would put a very big designation on it, like this is a satire article. Okay, so this is meant to be funny. This is not real. This is not true. So just save your ire for something else. And that's sort of
what you're proposing is kind of vetted news. And I'm thinking this is to be your own reporter for non-reporters or something along those lines, to Joe's point about who you are rather than who you're not. I would pick a specific niche, like, whether it's, true politics is going to be real tough, but if this is just cooking or just quilting and that's all you're going to talk about, and who's a reliable source and who's not a reliable source, and how to vet people. I would contact some of the folks that are really trying to do this already, like the Society for Professional Journalists, or even some of the news sites, to find out, what they're doing to verify sources. You're biting off a real big chunk here. And I'm not trying to be discouraging, but you might want to think about.
Oh, no, I'm aware.
Yeah, you might want to think about focusing tighter on something that you're really much more familiar with and able to vet personally.
I don't necessarily want to call it vetting, though. Just more descriptive in nature. Like, I did put that trustworthiness rating on there, but
well, that's part of that kind of is the definition of vetting, is to make sure that it's true, or if you're not sure, what percentage of not sure you are that it's true.
I wouldn't be the one coming up with the trustworthiness ratings, though.
Okay.
I would try to make it clear to the users that the trustworthiness rating would be from the users of the platform, like they vote on it.
Okay, so it's crowdsourced trustworthiness?
Mm-hmm. And try to make it clear to people that that's what it is. It doesn't come from some sort of global organization.
Well, then you've got to be real careful about who your crowd is. Because, you know, if your whole crowd is white supremacists, then your trustworthiness factor changes a bit.
A little bit better
Yeah,
controlled than Reddit.
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Or
I'm just
with
saying
that,
that's the
without
theme,
the
though.
without the anonymity factor, because that's where you get into a lot of trouble with Reddit.
Yeah.
I think.
Another
idea.
another focus would be, hey, are you familiar with Signal, the messaging app? Because Signal's claim to fame is try to be as anonymous and secure. You know, because basically anytime you post anything using Facebook Messenger or GChat or whatever, I mean, a big corporation is filtering it, right? Because they're mining it for words and things. Signal is, so if you look at signal.org, it's supposedly a very privacy is a big deal right now. And so that's one area where you really could stake a claim and kind of be like the social media version of Signal. I don't know if Signal is getting into that space, but basically that's yet another very intriguing / pertinent space that's important these days, and people really take that to heart. That has other issues all in of its own, because you know then you potentially get the ire of the government or other governments, right? But so just throwing it out there as far as another niche that really strikes a chord with people.
Right, and
Yeah, I agree.
That's sort of where I started with the privacy angle, because you know, of course, everything gets compared to Facebook because that's the big well-known one. So they've had their data breaches and their misuses sort of being put into the spotlight recently. And it's pretty obvious that they're doing stuff with your data, and there are some ways to control it. There's quite a few ways, but you kind of have to dig for them. And a lot of people just don't really do that or know how to do that, how to sort of lock down their profiles. So you're right.
I like the idea that you're doing a lot of privacy protection ideas. That's something that I use Mozilla Firefox, and there's an add-on that's called Terms of Service, and it's privacy policies that you don't read. And it goes through and it checks out every website, and it tells you what the privacy policies are. And you know that the idea about third parties, that's, you know, who are third parties, but they insist on any terms of service should have listed the, you know, third parties that they're going to go to, so that you at least know that.
Yeah, but most of them don't, and most people don't read the terms of service. They don't read the privacy policy. Even if they do read it, like I've tried, honestly, I have. I've made honest effort in the past. I start off, okay, I'm actually going to read it and try to understand what it says. I get, you know, a quarter of the way into it, realize how long it is, and give up on it because I don't really understand it, because there's so many things that are very blanket, like third-party partners. I know that means that they're basically, what they're saying is, we won't give your information to anybody except the people that we're allowed to.
Yeah.
And
do you use
I know
Mozilla Firefox?
not really.
They're really big on privacy protection, but yeah, you should look into that add-on. It's pretty neat how it works.
So has it ever?
But yeah, I think privacy
what that
would be one of the big.
Has what that plugin said about service or website's terms of service ever stopped you from using it? Like, has it said, oh, it has this, and you're like, oh, okay, well then I don't want to use that service.
And Mozilla Firefox has things that'll automatically block you from going into websites and say, warning, warning. It's really pretty cool. but yeah, they list what's there, and if you want to just rely on, oh, it's third parties, then you have to look at that. But it's neat that it's out there, that simplifies all this privacy policies that are just full of legalese, runarounds on words.
Yep.
It's pretty amazing.
So getting back to what Hive is or would be, like I said, that it's not an existing app or site at this point, more very concept stage kind of thing. So when I'm going on Facebook, because that's where all my friends and family are, I'm always thinking about it. I wish I could do this, but just have nobody else touching my stuff. So, and if you're going to have, obviously people can't make technology platforms for free. It's expensive. Money has to come from somewhere. So I think the time is right with the sort of the leanings toward privacy and realization of what we've all been doing with our information on the internet for a couple decades at least, that people might be willing to say, okay, instead of paying you with all my privacy and data, I'm going to just give you $10 a month and have you not touch my stuff, and I can do all these fun things and share cat memes with my friends. So,
Yeah, it's an interesting way of doing it.
And actually, interestingly, Wikipedia is trying to do it right now. And I paid to get on the platform because they were doing just paid right now, or a / waiting list. And I went on there to see what they were doing and, to see if it was what I was thinking of. And it still seemed to me too complex. It was very, very newsy. It struck me as the kind of social media platform that only editing Wikipedia types would actually want to use. And that's not most people.
Not at all. No.
Basically,
Not
I want it to be as easy as Facebook. Facebook is the easy one. That's why Facebook is getting the reputation for, that's where everybody's parents and grandparents are. So Facebook makes everything easy. So I'd like things to be as easy as Facebook, and then have some additional things that are easier, like seeing where the source of something came from. Like, for example, I think, the ownership of a source matters a lot, and people don't usually know anything about it. So, you'd see a source and it says, oh, this came from here, but who owns it? This came from this newspaper. Who owns the newspaper? Is it government owned? Is it like Al Jazeera is a sort of government owned thing, if that makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of compare it to food products too. There we see so many brands, but a lot of people don't know who the actual parent company is. So, say Dr. Pepper, the Dr. Pepper company did something, morally objectionable, and you're like, I'm going to boycott their products, but I really like Snapple. Guess who owns Snapple?
Coca-Cola.
Those
And
nefarious people at Dr. Pepper.
they do, yeah. And vitamin water is owned by Coke now, right? Amazon owns Whole Foods. So, there's a lot of opposition to Amazon these days too. But if you want to boycott Amazon, no more Whole Foods for you.
Yeah, if you want to boycott Amazon, good luck.
Yeah.
It's tough.
So that's an entirely other rabbit hole as well. So I was working on ways to make these things more accessible. Like, Facebook has the little information button, and it will tell me, I think it just links you to the Wikipedia article about the source. I'm trying to figure out a way to sort of present it quickly, because if you're scrolling, I'm not going to stop and push the information button and read an entire Wikipedia article. I would rather see things like, what type of source is this? What's the primary influence of this source if it has one? The political leaning. And again, it's very difficult to classify things like that, I found. But in general, things do tend to have a primary sort of influence.
Well, and what can be frustrating with that is, Wikipedia will have wars about, contentious things where literally like dozens of people will go in, edit it, and then 5 minutes later, someone else has gone in and from the other side and re-edited it. And it's kind of, I don't know. I think complete transparency is always the way to go. You always have to have a notion of who is doing the editing. I think you're right on the money there, but you really need to know who is doing the editing, who is doing, who is saying what. It's a weird thing you're talking about. You're talking about total privacy, and yet total transparency all at the same time. And I think it's possible. It's a weird conceptual thing to say. You get what I'm coming at from where I'm coming?
Yes.
Okay.
And
I mean, the fact that it's kind of a closed system in the sense that you're not, anyone who's seeing your feed should know who you are. I mean, it's not just gonna be like random people. That's one thing you're gonna start getting is all of a sudden you just start getting, quote unquote Russian bots all over the place too. And you don't know who's on your feed, who's disseminating information. That's the big issue, and so to some extent your privacy I don't know. I'm working through this in my head and I haven't had enough coffee yet. Other questions? Well, I think Chris wrote at the bottom, if you're looking for coders, Venture Cafe is the way to go. I'm trying to think of like, you could probably call up, Launch Code or Claim Academy and just say, hey, I'm trying to build this website. Do you have somebody, my guess is they're not going to be probably the best at their job, but they might be, they might work for free, which I know when you're starting up is always that's the right price.
Okay. So here's a question for all of you. When trying to find, I don't know if any of you have actually gone on a deliberate search for a technical co-founder for a specific project, but how do you do that without being that one person's annoying friend who has the $1 million app idea that's like, oh yeah, you just build it, and yeah, I've got this like super cool idea, bro. Like, how do you avoid being that person?
Chris, you would have the best answer for that, I would think.
What's that?
I mean, in my humble opinion, in order to break against the behemoth, you kind of have to have a focus. Like, I know you have to pick something because that's how you get passionate people. Without passionate people, you have nothing, right? Because essentially it just flounders. I mean, you are the obvious passionate person because this is your baby, but unless you have momentum, or a very famous celebrity that is your friend, you need something that can generate momentum, because that's the whole social part of social media and networks. So I totally agree with Joseph that you need to either drill down to something and then worry about expanding it, or otherwise you're going to get just this constant barrage of, yeah, she's got a great idea. And in other words, the hive doesn't move. The hive stays there because you've got, just undirected inputs from everyone who means well, But because everyone's so different, coming from completely different backgrounds, they push the boat in a different direction. So you end up idling. I think you kind of have to pick a battle, pick some focus, get a bunch of core people that then can move. You get once you have momentum, you can steer the ship, right? Otherwise, you're just drifting. So that's what I humbly believe. In order to take on a behemoth, is that you have to pick a niche that they can't cover, with security, privacy, that kind of baked into it. Yes, because that is a big thing they can never cover, because that's how they make money. It's a challenge. It is a hella challenge. I mean, it's but again, that's just my humble opinion.
Yep. Humble opinion, well taken. I'm gonna
Good advice.
write down all the interesting stuff from the chat here.
So I mean, when you're sitting on the hot seat, it's hard to have answers right out the tip of your tongue, and a lot of
Right?
times you want to come back.
And
say,
obviously, I
"Oh,
don't have the answers. Like, Chris was looking at some pretty well-developed website and thought that was me, and I have to sit here and be like, oh no, it doesn't. It's not a thing yet. I just want it to be a thing. So, but
That's how big things start. I mean,
that's the honest truth right there. And going back to what I was saying about avoiding being the, yeah, bro, just build this app and we'll be millionaires person. That's why I started with Adalo, because I was like, okay, I need to show that I've put some sort of work into this to try to show what it would look like, not just throw something out into the atmosphere and expect it to materialize.
mm,
And I have sort of basement level coding ability in Python. Like, I know enough to know how much I don't know, and to know how difficult it is. But for me to actually learn enough to build something that works, I'm not sure if that's the most practical route to go. And for some people, that route actually does work, but I don't know that that's going to be my way.
Do you have mentors that are in either this space or have familiarity with this space? Because that's sort of, again, things you're kind of going for like an organic edge, right? We're new, kind of like how WeWork started, minus the whole losing billions of dollars part.
minus the insanity.
Yeah, insanity. Having insanity does fill the seats. I mean, don't get me wrong, but having a mentor would be, I think, very key, because when you're starting something new, you don't want to step on landmines, because they just kill your business immediately. And even though you potentially are bringing in people who already have a mindset, and you're trying not to be that mindset, it is still, that's how the path forward has worked. And humans are creatures of habit. So it may be worth your while to bring on, like I said, a mentor who's either in social media, who has grown something one way or the other. I mean, they've probably they're like an Instagram influencer or something like that, because they would give you insight as to how to capture that spark, which is the hardest thing, right? Because initially the spark is I'm different, but then different becomes not different after a while. Or the big thing is the big guys just muscle in and say, oh, we'll just do that, if it's a great idea. So having a mentor that can kind of guide you as far as, because we're just spitballing, but someone who has either done this or has experience doing that. And another thing is they have connections, right? They can actually open doors for you and say, you have a great idea. I have a couple people that could help you execute, maybe a coder along the way. Ricky can help you with that. I-10 can help you with that. Finding potential mentors. Joe can help you with that. Potential mentors who have done this, because it is a big challenge. I mean, you have great intentions. It's just hard, right? It's like science. That's my space. Scientists, we all have great intentions. It's just a hard space.
And like I said earlier, I work in research. I work at WashU. I'm a research coordinator, so I am stuck in the middle of red tape blocking the good intentions all day, every day.
I'm
And
30 years at WashU. What department are you in?
neurology.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I worked with you guys for a while.
Yeah. So, and one of my bosses, his big thing is remote cognitive assessment using smartphone apps. So I've waded into the mess that is development also, and trying to get researchers and developers to communicate with each other, which is sort of an interesting experience, and having to translate between two people who speak perfect English and yet somehow cannot understand each other. So
I think I mean, I agree with Chris 100%. You should, when you get off here, you should contact I-10. I mean,
I am in I-10.
okay.
Uh,
Do you have a mentor?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
went to, I'm assuming, since I don't know, I don't have one.
That would be, yeah, that would, that's a pretty good
So
assumption.
I went to the onboarding, I think back in January though,
Okay.
and was asked, do you want a mentor? And I said yes, and I'm not sure what was supposed to happen after that.
Yeah. It requires some follow-up, and sometimes, you know,
Right.
they
And
never want to hear me say this, but you know, people can't get lost between the cracks.
yeah, and you know, I get it. You can't mentor everybody, and you're not gonna just run after someone and be like, hey, can I mentor you? Like, people who have the skills to mentor don't have time to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately not.
I've
Well, the
got some
pandemic
really
also
good-
messed a lot of things up too.
yeah,
So.
yes. Yeah, that pretty much
a list of
derailed
mentors you can go through, and it'll
derailed everybody's
yeah.
plan.
I-10 has a list you can go through. You can actually search the mentors at I-10, and it'll give you a description of what the different mentors have done. And I've gotten some great advice after looking at the mentors and just emailing them, and they're pretty quick on getting back to you. So you might just do that. Look through the list, because that's a quick way to really see what they've done, to see if it's appropriate for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
That's great
I was
advice.
wondering if network neutrality might be a niche. This is something that I got off, this is from Wikipedia, but it talks about network neutrality and how, you know, AT&T and all the big ISP companies are kind of taking over and not making it equal for who gets access to what. And that's another thing Mozilla Firefox is big on, is helping fight for network neutrality.
Good stuff all around.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you. Another niche would be medical, potentially. You know, again, let's just start out something, get doctors that can communicate with other doctors, because I mean, I'm a physician. I have an MD, PhD from WashU. So literally, we love to talk to one another outside the influence of Facebook and everything, just because there's so much going on. I mean, just talking COVID alone. I mean, that's like a 5-hour conversation every damn day with my friends. You know,
And
new
is there-
techniques, new this.
And what platform do you use for
Yeah.
it? Do you just text each other?
Signal and texting. So again, that's my point is always finding a niche that you get a lot of passionate people on board with allows you to grow. Because again, you obtain momentum, and then you can then steer the ship. Otherwise, your ship is idle. But that's something that's a huge niche, and you're stuck at WashU, and that's something. If you just got like 50 physicians on board who are able to communicate secretly, not secretly, that's not the right word. What's the word I'm looking for?
Privately?
Offline. Well, yeah, like kind of like a HIPAA, because there's a lot of information they could pass with one another that would be very beneficial to their survival, if nothing else. But yeah, you know, all you can do is text. Even, you know, anything you text or heaven forbid put in Messenger, it's already scanned by any number of big companies. So that's potentially a big way in, because there really isn't a communication app for medical professionals. And right now, that niche isn't going away for another 1.5 years, 2 years. I mean, specifically just for this. And so that's just something to think about.
Yeah, and like I said, being in the giant mess of chaos that is WashU, there's every 2 hours every single day, I think to myself, there's got to be a better way of doing this. Doesn't matter what it is, everything, just everything. There has to be a better way. But
yeah, and there's lots of exit potential in that. I mean, everything from WebMD to Mayo Clinic's foundation. There's a lot of people who would love to do something like that from a medical, either for physicians and healthcare professionals, or a vetted source. Well, I guess it's a slippery slope. Then you're kind of infringing on WebMD and the other sources as well. But something that would allow medical professionals to communicate with one another, like a Facebook for medical professionals. That would be an awesome first niche, and you're surrounded by it. So you could leverage that. You might even talk to WashU about doing it. OTM loves to.
Nah.
No?
I know too much about them to want to.
Okay.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, they will steal all your stuff.
Yeah.
They want to put their name on everything, and but I see your point. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. My wife works for Siteman, and she's done research with the Department of Biology, and just talking with other medical professionals that would be a really good niche.
Mm-hmm.
I think too. It sounds like a good thing to look into closely. Oh, my dog just came up. I'm rubbing my dog.
Oh. Yesterday.
That's why I'm moving around.
I was looking around for one of my cats because I was on a Zoom call yesterday and she was trying to climb up my leg.
I saw your cat when you first came on.
Yeah, she's sleeping right now, but if she decides she wants to be picked up, she tries to climb up my leg, and then I just have to pick her up and just sort of casually just hold the cat while talking or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I always like seeing people's pets on a Zoom call, so I assume most other people do too.
Yeah.
Just
lends a little humanity to people.
Yeah, seeing a cat or dog just kind of going about their day.
All right. Well, I think that's Sarah, would you mind putting your email in the chat below? So if people want to connect to you directly, they can do so.
Great. Yeah, we do a Wednesday lunch from T-Rex, and we've been going online, and one guy went to work for Purina, and he hasn't been to the lunch until we've been going virtually, and a parakeet landed on his shoulder the other day. I was like, whoa, that's
well, that's different.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, having kids running around in the background too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fun.
So, all right. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Yeah. I believe BJ said, yeah, thank you. Ricky, we do not have a presenter next week. Is that correct? I think that's what Ricky didn't. I think
that's
she said
correct,
that.
Joe.
Okay.
We don't. I'm working on one though. I haven't gotten back. She hasn't gotten back with me, so I'm still working. So if somebody has somebody definite, let me know. But I'm working.
Okay. Hey, we can only do what you can only do what you can do.
Yeah, people have been really receptive though. I thought it was gonna be really hard, except for the one time, kind of was just a slip up. But people really have been receptive. I've just been telling them, like, guys, this is probably the best time to present. Like, this is really cool. I think you would enjoy it, but can't get people to do that. But most of the folks have been receptive. I just haven't had a lot of folks to apply. So if you know somebody, just tell them to get on. Like, they can get like a whole hour worth of like great advice.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Definitely.
Yeah, Joe's like a couple $100 an hour. You're talking to him for free.
Yeah, yeah, that's the discount. That's the friends and family rate.
Like, this is amazing. So yeah, but it's been really good, and I've been trying to, get people to to not be so down on the totem pole. Well, can I do it in June? Well, in June, sweetheart, we may still be doing this. I'm just want to tell you, so you can do it in June. You can do it today.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Everybody wants to procrastinate.
yeah, I know. So yeah, if you know anybody, just let them, just, let them know, and I'll touch bases with them and we'll get it. But for right now, no, we do not have a presenter for next week.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Hopefully we will
thank
see
you.
each other
Thank you,
next
everybody.
week. Thank you very much, Sarah. Great presentation. Let's
Thank
everybody
you. I
continue
appreciate
to,
all your input.
yeah, no problem. And definitely touch base with I-10, and hopefully we'll have a presenter next week. But if we don't, then hopefully we'll see you guys all in 2 weeks. So that's all for now. Take care.